Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are looking at one of the most uh, audacious moments in this entire history.
Yeah.
A moment that really just redefined what it meant to go up against the establishment.
Yeah, we're talking about a single figure, someone completely outside the system, who managed to pull off what entire armies couldn't. The conquest of an immortal resource.
And not just any immortal resource. We're digging into the immediate, chaotic aftermath of Feng Yuan seizing Hu immortal blessed land. And with it, the legendary Danghan Mountain.
Right from under the noses of all 10 great righteous path sects. I mean, you can't overstate the scale of this. This wasn't just a theft. This was a mortal, a demonic cultivator, publicly and profoundly humiliating the entire power structure of the central continent.
Exactly. I mean, imagine it. You don't just win the prize. You do it while literally stepping on the face of the person who was supposed to inherit it. The sheer arrogance of it, you know.
Yeah.
It meant Feng Yuan instantly went from being a minor problem to public enemy number one.
And the consequences, they were immediate. They just cascaded outwards, affecting some of the most powerful galornals in the world. It forced them into this political reorganization, demanding these painful concessions from each other.
And that's just the external pressure. Internally, inside his new prize, Feng Yuan was facing his own set of existential threats. The biggest one being the ticking clock of the next earthly calamity, which he was, well, completely unprepared for.
Not at all.
So, our mission today is to really reconstruct this whole brutal story using the records we have. We're going to move past just the simple fact of the conquest and get into the setup of the schemes they hatched against him, the brutal crisis management he had to do inside the land.
And the climax of it all, that violent sixth earthly calamity and the sacrifices that came with it.
Exactly. And then we'll look at the new status quo that sort of rises from all that wreckage. We're tracing the immense, immediate price of grabbing a piece of immortality.
Yeah.
And what it really takes to hold on to it.
Let's get into it.
Okay, so let's start at ground zero of the emotional fallout with Feng Jianhuang. She's the genius disciple, the one who lost everything at the very last second. The records are so explicit about the psychological damage here, and we have to understand it because her trauma is what sets two rank 7 Go immortals into motion.
Right. This wasn't just about losing a resource. It was a deep public humiliation for someone who was hailed as, the future of her sect. Someone who had literally never failed at anything competitive in her life.
And the memory wasn't just a bad memory.
Yeah.
The texts say it was festering, driving her towards a real breakdown.
It was. The sources mention that 9 days after the event, she's trying to meditate by this ancient lake, just trying to calm down.
Yeah.
But she can't even manage 30 breaths of cultivation.
Why not?
Because she's haunted by this image. The image of Feng Yuan standing on top of that pink crystal mountain, the symbol of control over the land.
And the details of that image are just brutal.
They're excruciatingly detailed, yeah. And that's the source of her shame. Feng Yuan is naked, he's wounded, his eyes are described as these eerie black pupils just looking down at her, completely victorious.
Someone who's been so sheltered, that's her first real exposure to, well, a man's body. And it's in this context of total domination.
Exactly. She sees his muscles, his chest, the blood on his arm, his whole physique. It's a complete violation of her world, and it's all wrapped up in her defeat.
But the thing that really broke her, the thing that just solidified her hatred, wasn't just the defeat or the nudity. It was a specific physical act.
The final insult. He stretches out his right foot, and he deliberately steps on her face. It's this act of pure, calculated disdain.
That's just, wow.
And the physical feeling of being trampled, the source says she could still feel it days later. The trauma was ongoing. So you have this mix of shame, hatred, fury. Her pride is just shattered. It's a psychological bomb.
And she can't hold it in. She opens her eyes and just screams.
And that scream isn't just a scream. It's an eruption of pure destructive power. The rage in her heart becomes this frenzy of punches. And within moments, she completely decimates the entire Green Mountain Valley she's in.
The text is really clear about this, too. It says that her power in that moment, fueled by shame, was so terrifying that 10 Feng Yuans wouldn't have stood a chance against her. The psychological break immediately turns into this shocking display of force.
And of course, the people who have to deal with this are her parents. You have the rank 6 Gu immortal, Fairy by King, and the rank 7 powerhouse, Feng Jugi. He's from Spirit Affinity House. And their reaction to their daughter's breakdown is what sets the entire political stage for this central continent.
Fairy Bai King's reaction is what you expect, right?
Yeah.
She's frantic. She's focused on her daughter's pain. She's asking Feng Juge, aren't you worried? She's humiliated. The inheritance is gone.
She's the concerned mother, but Feng Jugi's reaction different. It's not emotional, it's cold, it's calculated. He comforts his wife, of course, but in his mind he sees this failure as, well, necessary.
Necessary.
Yeah.
How so?
He's not thinking about revenge for revenge's sake. He's thinking about growth. He's forcing his daughter to learn from this.
This is that famous birds leave the nest philosophy he has, isn't it? He sees this as the most important failure of her life, something she needs to, train her wings.
Exactly. It sounds harsh, but he's measuring her against the absolute highest standard. He even compares her situation to desolate ancient moon, Renzu's daughter, who failed countless times and suffered, unimaginable torment. For Feng Jugi to be the best, you have to survive the worst.
So in his mind, Feng Yuan isn't even really an enemy. He's a whetstone, a painful one.
A very painful one.
Okay, I get the philosophy, but you can't just ignore the political reality. Spirit Affinity House lost a huge prize. Bai King pushes him on this, right? She wants to know what they're going to do about getting compensation from Immortal Crane Sect, since they were technically in charge.
And this is where Feng Jidi's personal history and his threat level become so important. Despite being on the righteous path now, he immediately writes this letter to Immortal Crane Sect. And it's described as overbearing, undeniable. His threat isn't a bluff because everyone knows his background.
Right, the sources remind us he started on the demonic path. He got to rank 6 in secret, then just announced himself to the world by challenging and defeating all 10 of the great sects.
Including Immortal Crane Sect. He beat them all before Fairy Bai King convinced him to switch sides. Now he's a rank 7, backed by one of those same sects. So when he makes a demand, it's not a request.
It's ironclad.
Yes. His internal monologue is chillingly confident. It says something like, out of the top 10 sects in Central Continent now, none are worthy of facing off against me. So Feng Yuan's single act of theft has now directly provoked the wrath of a guy who thinks he's untouchable. And that guy is demanding immediate, painful payment from a rival superpower.
The unified front of the Central Continent is already starting to fracture. So Feng Juge makes his demand, and all that pressure lands squarely on Immortal Crane Sect. The scene shifts to their headquarters, the Shang King Pavilion on Fatal Mountain, and you can just feel the tension. They're trying to deal with Feng Juge's threats, but also their own internal politics.
Right. There's a big factional conflict bubbling up, specifically between two leaders, Lei Tan and He Feng Yang.
And Lei Tan goes right for the throat, doesn't he? He immediately attacks He Feng Yang, questioning why he defended Feng Yuan before, this non-disciple. He's basically asking why they should be the ones to pay huge compensation to 9 other sects for something a rogue agent did.
It's a total crisis of legitimacy for He Feng Yang. But this is where He Feng Yang reveals his master plan, his core ruthless calculation. He explains that by taking the hit, by paying the compensation, they actually gain a monopoly.
How does that work?
He points out that Feng Yuan looks almost identical to their own prized disciple, Feng Zhang. So, by publicly, even if falsely, claiming Feng Yuan as one of their own, a lost or misguided disciple, they immediately cut the other 9 sects out of the picture.
Ah, I see. So the other sects can't make a claim on the blessed land if it was stolen by a member of the Immortal Crane Sect.
Yeah.
That's incredibly clever.
It's brilliant and so far-sighted. The compensation is a huge price to pay now, but it's temporary. The value of being the only external group that can make a claim on Hugh Immortal Blessed Land, that's permanent and astronomical.
So they willingly take the humiliation, they sacrifice massive assets in the short term, all to go from being one of 10 competitors to the sole claimant. They're absolutely playing the long game.
The long game for everything. Full control of the Blessed Land, Dang Hun Mountain, and of course, the fixed immortal travel gown.
But He Feng Yang still had to explain why they couldn't just, smash their way in now that they had the monopoly. Why not just attack immediately?
Well, there were 3 huge roadblocks. The first was political. The Blessed Land is on Tianti Mountain, and attacking it is seen as a direct affront to the Heavenly Court's dignity. You risk bringing down the wrath of the absolute highest power.
I get a good move.
No. Second, the cost. Just the raw resource cost. To take down a Blessed Land with a living land spirit, a ton of immortal essence, and Dang Hun Mountain as its defensive core, you'd need 5 or 6 gun immortals working together, burning through their own precious immortal essence, and you might still fail.
And even if you succeed, you risk the whole thing just blowing up in your face.
That's the third and biggest risk. If the land spirit feels cornered, it can choose to self-destruct. The winds of assimilation sweep over, everything is destroyed, and the attackers get nothing. As Feng Yang says, good immortals don't make deals where they're guaranteed to lose.
So a frontal assault is off the table. They need an opening, a strategic window.
And that opening is time. Specifically, the ticking clock of the sixth earthly calamity.
Of course.
Feng Yang's calculation was precise. He knew the calamity was due in 1 year and 3 months of outside time. And he knew that Feng Yuan, just a rank 4 mortal, had absolutely no chance of surviving an immortal-level trial like that on his own.
So their plan isn't conquest, it's exploitation. They're just going to wait for him to get desperate.
They're going to let the calamity do all the heavy lifting for them.
So what was the plan for after the calamity hits? What were their capture methods?
They had a two-pronged approach. First, the soft option. They'd use Feng Yuan's twin brother Feng Xing to appeal to any lingering sense of kinship. They hoped they could persuade Feng Yuan to just give up and join their sect, handing over the land peacefully.
And if that didn't work?
Then they'd use force, but smart force, not brute force. They were planning to use things like a powerful slavery goo on the now weakened mortal Feng Yuan. That way they could take control of him, and by extension the land spirit, without actually damaging any of the assets.
It all comes back to getting the resource intact.
Every single part of the plan revolves around that.
And just to keep this whole grand scheme on the rails, just to appease Feng Zhuge in the meantime, he and Feng Yang had to pay a crushing personal price.
A huge price. He was forced to surrender his own personal immortal go. It was called one's own way go.
And that's not a small thing. An immortal goo is central to an immortal's power.
It's crippling. This particular goo allowed its user to follow their own path of cultivation, regardless of, the trends or constraints of the world. It's part of his core identity. Giving it up is a massive personal and political blow. It just shows how severe the crisis Feng Yuan created was. One of the 10 great sects had to basically dismantle a key personal asset of a leader just to buy a chance at getting the prize later.
The pressure was just immense.
Devastating.
So while all this scheming, sacrificing is happening on the outside, Feng Yuan finally wakes up inside the Blessed Land. And he's not exactly celebrating his win.
No, not at all. He wakes up 7 days later and he's completely out of it, severely injured. And the main injury isn't physical, it's this profound soul weakness.
Or the refinement process, right?
Exactly. Forcing a mortal body to refine an immortal goo, even just transforming one, it tears your soul apart. The records say his mind was foggy, his ears were buzzing, he could barely think straight.
And then he gets the news from the land spirit, little Hugh Immortal, who looks like a terrified 5-year-old girl.
A little fox girl, yeah. And she confirms his worst fear. The big existential threat is coming, and it's coming fast.
The time pressure must have been just horrifying.
It was. The time flow inside Hugh Immortal Blessed Land is 5 times faster than the outside world. So that 1 year and 3 months the sects were banking on. For Feng Yuan, inside the land, that's less than 2 years, and the clock is ticking down fast.
Less than 2 years to prepare for the same trial that killed the land's previous owner, an actual immortal.
The odds are not good.
Okay, so let's take stock.
Yeah.
What's in his survival kit at this point? What are his assets?
The foundation for his survival really comes down to 3 things. First, he has a huge, if non-renewable, pile of cash, so to speak. 78.5 beads of green grape immortal essence. That's his operational power.
And he's got the goo he came for.
Yes. Second, the fixed immortal travel goo is secure. And third, and this is the big one, he has Danghun Mountain itself, which is basically a factory for soul cultivation.
But the liabilities list is long and very scary. They're threatening to tear the place apart before the calamity even gets there.
Oh, absolutely. The land is covered in these old battle scars that are now weak points. You've got these eastern fire pits from a meteor shower that are still burning with these dark, creepy flames. And the entire northern area is still flooded from a previous calamity. These aren't just cosmetic problems, they actively attract more disaster.
And on top of all that, there's an unkillable enemy already inside with them.
The rank 6 Blue Charm Lightning Shadow, this thing is a leftover piece of the calamity that killed Hugh Immortal, and it's just stuck there, roaming the land, completely immune to mortal-level goo. It's a constant active rank 6 threat that could just appear and kill him at any moment.
So with all these threats, he has to change his whole approach. He can't just stick with the strength path he's been building.
No, his conclusion is driven by just brutal necessity. He decides he has to commit to a dual path strategy. He needs the enslavement path to manage huge armies for defense and, big labor projects.
And the strength path.
That's for his personal survival. For close quarters combat against something like the Lightning Shadow, which could just ignore an army and go straight for the leader.
But before he can even start planning any of that, he has to fix his own soul. He can barely even think straight.
And that's where Dang Hun Mountain becomes his immediate lifeline. He goes straight to the mountain and starts smashing these things called gut stones that are lying around.
What are those?
The mountain itself has this property where it breaks down souls that die on it. The fragments kind of fuse with the rock and form these gut stones. When you smash them, they release something called guts goo.
And guts goo directly strengthens the soul.
Instantly. It's a completely unique resource. So he uses the limited stock that was already there to basically heal himself.
So he's literally using the land itself as medicine. How much of a boost did he get?
He strengthened his soul by a factor of 5. This not only healed him from the refinement injuries, it gave him the mental horsepower and resilience he needed to plot and manage millions of troops. For a mortal, a 5x soul boost isn't just healing, it's a massive power-up.
So his mind is clear. He's got his new dual path strategy. Now he has to deal with the land's weak points, the fire pits, the flood. And that's going to require a huge labor force, a fatal labor force.
Which brings us to the Rockmen. The variant humans living deep underground, they eat ore, they live a long time, and they're master diggers.
And the previous owner, Hugh Immortal, had a good relationship with them. Right?
Yeah.
Kindness, gifts, that sort of thing.
A very soft approach. Fang Yuan, fresh off his 5x soul boost, throws that entire playbook out the window.
The era of cruelty begins.
It really does. He summons the Rockmen leaders, he listens to them complain about tributes for about a minute, and then he gives them this impossible command. Forget tributes. Your new job is to dig a massive, life-threatening river channel to connect the northern flood to the eastern fire pits.
He's basically handing them a death sentence and calling it a construction project.
And when the leaders protest, they try to reason with him, talk about how dangerous it is, how they need to sleep. Fang Yuan's response is immediate. And it's shocking.
He just kills them.
Kills several of them on the spot with a golden dragon attack. Just shatters them. And he leaves one survivor, a young, terrified one named Yan Young, and makes him his new puppet leader.
And the reason he gives him that quote is one of the most defining moments for his character.
It is. Yan Young asks him, why did you spare me? And Feng Yan doesn't give him a strategic reason. He doesn't make a promise. He just smiles warmly at him and says, because I like your fear and horror towards me.
That is just pure, calculated psychological warfare. He's saying, your loyalty means nothing to me but your terror. That's the most useful tool you have. He wanted a leader who was completely broken, somebody who would do anything to survive.
And that would guarantee maximum effort from the entire race.
So now we get into the really dark part of Feng Yuan's crisis management. This is the genius of his cruel social engineering, all done through his terrified puppet, Yan Young.
Right. Yan Young's job is to get his people to work themselves to death, but to do it willingly. They have to think it's their own idea.
So he invents a myth, a heroic lie.
He does. He goes back to his people and claims the old leaders fought bravely against this demonic male immortal and that they were gloriously defeated. But with his dying breath, the old tribe leader told Yan Young the secret to defeating the demon. They had to complete this river project.
It's self-sacrifice, but he's framed it as a winning strategy.
It's a propaganda masterpiece. It plays on their warrior spirit, their fear of this outside threat who Yan Young claims is off recovering, and it completely masks the reality that their own master is the one driving them to their deaths to fix his property.
And Feng Yuan helps sell the lie, doesn't he? He stages a little battle.
He does. A short, staged fight where he quickly escapes after shouting that he needs to recover his power from the flood and the fire pits. It perfectly reinforces Yan Young's story. It makes the Rockmen feel like they're fighting for their lives, not dying for their master's convenience.
And while this psychological manipulation is going on, the actual mechanics of exploitation get moving. He needs more meat shields for the calamity.
So he starts mass-producing foxes. He uses estrus goo to just explode the population. The source says he gets up to 4.7 million of them. They're his disposable army.
But the truly terrifying part is how he connects the Rockmen's labor directly to his own power. You said that when they die from exhaustion, their souls just dissipate.
They vanish completely. There's no coming back. It's total annihilation.
So he creates a new system for that.
He does. He realizes that souls from those who die in battle in those staged skirmishes don't dissipate in the same way. So he has those souls collected by a special gu, a burial soul toad. He takes those souls and lays them on Dang Hun Mountain,
And the mountain turns them into new gutstones.
which then become guts goo. And that guts goo is used to heal and strengthen the surviving Rockman leaders, and even to speed up the birth of new Rockman children.
Wait a minute. So the survivors are consuming the souls of their dead friends and family
Turned into guts goo.
to make themselves stronger and produce more children, only to put those children right back to work on the same fatal project?
It is a self-perpetuating, horrifyingly efficient cycle of sacrifice. The dead workers fuel the soul factory, and the soul factory produces the resources and the new workers needed to keep the fatal labor going. It's turning misery directly into cultivation strength.
And to keep morale up through all this, Yan Yang starts using authoritarian tactics.
Pure social control. He puts up heroic gravestones everywhere. He plasters slogans about sacrificing for tomorrow, and he creates the Rock Guards.
It's a youth league.
Basically, yeah. Young, fanatic rockmen who spy on anyone who tries to rest or questions the mission. They enforce the work pace through peer pressure and zealotry. The older, wiser ones who might see through the lies. They're quietly sent on the most dangerous missions or killed in the skirmishes.
And Yan Yang is at the center of it all, this one surviving leader, knowing he's personally marching his people into oblivion.
The agony he must have been in, but Fang Yuan didn't care about his conscience. He cared about results. And after months of this, remember, time is moving 5 times faster inside. The impossible project is finished.
And it works. A triumph of horrific engineering. The northern floods are channeled down the New River and into the eastern fire pits.
The result is incredible. The water puts out half of those dark flames, stabilizing the land's 2 biggest weak points. There's a ton of steam and clouds, but the core damage is patched. Fang Yan has bought himself a chance.
But the price?
The price was a civilization. The Rockman population started at around 10,000. By the end of the project, there are just over 200 survivors left. An entire race sacrificed just to prepare for the coming disaster.
The land is patched. The Fox Army is ready. His soul is strong. Fang Yuan gets into position on Dang Hun Mountain, and the clock runs out.
The pressure cooker blows. The 6th earthly calamity arrives.
And it comes in one of the worst possible forms. A desolate beast calamity. A mountain-sized swamp crab just descends through this door of light in the sky. It's this terrifying earth and water beast covered in a thick, muddy shell, and it can constantly breed a smaller crab army.
There was one crucial bit of good news, though. Fang Yan confirms it has no immortal Gao on it. If it had been armed with even one offensive immortal Gao, the whole thing would have been over in seconds.
So his opening move is just pure attrition. He unleashes the Fox Army, millions of them again, and just throws them at it. They're just sacrificial shields to slow it down.
But the scale of this thing is just, it's hard to imagine. The swamp crab is like a moving glacier. It crushes hundreds of thousands of foxes and its own crabs into paste with every single step. And it's constantly spewing mud to create more of its own soldiers.
Even with his strengthened soul. Controlling that, many creatures must have put him under immense strain.
A huge strain. He had to rely on the raw power of Dang Hun Mountain, that soul-shaking ability. He's blasting the crab with it constantly, which damages its soul and forces it to slow down as it gets closer.
But still not enough. It's relentless. He realizes he can't let it reach the mountain itself.
Right. If it destroys Dang Hun Mountain, he's lost everything. So he has to throw all his plans for resource conservation out the window.
This is where he starts burning through his most precious, non-renewable resource.
He orders a little Hugh Immortal to use the green grape immortal essence for repeated short-range teleports. He has to constantly move this mountain-sized beast.
To keep it at the perfect distance, right? Just at the edge of the mountain's soul-shaking range.
Exactly. 3,000 steps away. But every single teleport costs 1 bead of that precious, non-renewable immortal essence. His most valuable resource is just burning away.
And just when things couldn't get worse, the second calamity joins the fight.
Yeah.
The internal threat.
The blue charm lightning shadow is back. It had been attacking Dang Hun Mountain, but the soul shaking was too much for it, so it changes targets. It starts attacking the newly repaired borders of the Blessed Land.
So it's a pincer attack. The crab is pounding the core, draining his immortal essence, and the lightning shadow is punching holes in the borders.
And those holes are a huge problem. If they stay open too long, they could become permanent passages to the outside world, basically inviting the Go Immortals to walk right in.
He's trapped. He can't spare the essence to fix the holes, and he can't spare the time to fight a rank 6 opponent. This forces him to make an agonizing choice.
A radical, all-or-nothing choice. He orders the land spirit to surgically amputate the land itself.
Wait, he cuts off a piece of his own land.
The entire northern area. Over 666 square kilometers of territory. Little Hugh Immortal is weeping. She's hysterical. She compares it to cutting off your own leg to save your life.
That's an incredible sacrifice. But how does that solve the problem with the lightning shadow?
It creates this temporary, controlled boundary collapse. The blue charm lightning shadow is caught inside that piece of territory as it evaporates, so it gets forcibly exiled from the blessed land, thrown back into the outside world.
Wow. So he gets rid of a permanent ranks internal threat by paying a huge price in territory.
Yeah.
That's a ruthless strategic trade.
But it worked. With the border threat gone, he can focus everything on the swamp crab. The beast is still hammering away, but the relentless soul pressure from the mountain, combined with all those teleports keeping it in range, finally becomes too much.
Its desolate beast soul just gives out.
It collapses, dead. After burning through 13 beads of green grape immortal essence, sacrificing almost his entire fox army, and amputating a huge chunk of his land, the sixth earthly calamity is finally over.
He survived. He passed a trial that killed an actual immortal. But the cost was just staggering.
So the battle's over, the smoke clears, and Feng Yuan starts to take stock of the wreckage. He survived, which is a huge win, but it came at an almost unimaginable cost.
Let's do the balance sheet. What were the big losses in this new status quo?
The losses were really significant. First, the land itself is permanently smaller. He lost about a sixth of his territory. That 666 square kilometers is just gone.
And his immortal essence took a huge hit.
A huge hit. He went from 78.5 beads down to just 68. And his primary defense force, the Fox Army, was basically annihilated. He started with millions. He's left with just over 300,000. And even Danghan Palace itself was damaged in the fight.
Okay, so those are the losses. But the games weren't just about survival, were they? They were strategic.
Absolutely. First and foremost, he proved he could do it. He survived a trial that killed the last owner. That's a huge confidence boost and proof of concept. Second, the blue charm lightning shadow is gone for good, exiled. That gives him years of internal peace to just focus on cultivation.
And the crab itself is a prize.
A massive prize. The corpse of a desolate beast is an incredible treasure trove of refinement materials.
But the biggest gain of all has to be the fuel for his soul cultivation.
The soul factory is now running at full capacity. The battlefield is littered with the shattered souls of the swamp crab and millions of dead foxes. That guarantees an absolute explosion in Gutsgo production for years. He has secured the means for rapid, continuous soul strengthening, which is the foundation of everything else he wants to do.
And this whole ordeal seems to have really cemented his character and his strategy going forward. The dual path is no longer a theory.
It's his official doctrine now. The enslavement path is for his armies, for labor, for generating resources like the Gutsgo. But the strength path is for his own personal defense, so he can't be taken out with a simple behead the leader tactic.
And his soul is now 6 times stronger than a normal person's. That's what lets him manage both paths at once.
Right. It's essential.
And what's really interesting is that even during all this chaos, the outside world was still trying to get in. 3 letters managed to slip through a temporary loophole in the land's defenses.
He looks at them pretty quickly. He dismisses 2 of them as irrelevant, but one catches his eye. It's the challenge from Feng Juje.
On behalf of his daughter, right? Proposing a duel between Feng Yuan and Feng Jinhuang to settle the score.
Yeah, it's Feng Jinhuang's emotional attempt to get her pride back, to face her humiliator in direct combat.
So after everything he's just been through, what's Feng Yuan's take on this grand challenge of honor?
He dismisses it instantly and totally. I mean, think about it. He just sacrificed millions of lives, a huge chunk of territory, and his most precious resource just to survive. The idea of risking his life and his valuable time for some girl's personal pride is, to him, completely absurd.
He has bigger fish to fry.
Much bigger. He has no time for what he sees as petty duels.
So with the immediate crisis over and these minor distractions pushed aside, what are his new big picture goals? What's next on the agenda?
He has 2 massive paramount goals. First, he has to find the 4 world-class top-quality wines. This is a requirement from the legends of Renzu, and it's what he needs to refine the divine travel goo.
Which is itself just a material for the real prize he's been after for so long.
Exactly. The divine travel goo is a key ingredient in the recipe for the second aperture goo. That's the ultimate goal.
And his second goal.
He needs to get his hands on some destiny-modifying tools, specifically success-type goo worms, like an immediate success goo. He needs them to guarantee that when he finally attempts to refine the second aperture goo, it doesn't fail because of bad luck. After paying such a huge price for this chance, he can't afford to leave anything to chance.
What we've just walked through is this.
Yeah.
This terrifying display of strategic thinking, of ruthlessness, and just pure survival instinct. Feng Yuan got through an impossible situation, not with heroism, but by clinically amputating parts of his own asset and sacrificing an entire civilization.
The cost was just immense. You can measure it in immortal essence. You can measure it in the 10,000 lives of the Rockmen. But what he bought with that currency was time. He secured an incredible base in Danghun Mountain for his own growth, and he cemented this philosophy of survival based on exploiting every single resource at his disposal.
Including the fear and suffering of his only allies in the Blessed Land. He is now operating on a completely different level than the mortal world he just left. He's a player now, forcing Goon immortals to react to him.
He absolutely is. He literally turned misery into personal power with that Guts Goo factory. But his entire foundation is now built on lies, on terror, and on the annihilation of an entire variant human race.
Which leaves us with a pretty big question to think about.
It does. I mean, Feng Yuan successfully used the hatred and the suffering of the Rockmen to make himself stronger. But how long can a foundation that's built entirely on fear, on the willingness to sacrifice your only local allies, how long can that really last against the relentless forces of destiny? He may have survived the sixth earthly calamity, but the true price of immortality, I think, is only just beginning to be tallied.